Alrighty. We'll go ahead and hop right in. We'll definitely have this session is being recorded. So for those who join us late or those who are unable to join today, we'll definitely be there for them. But I want to go ahead and get us started. I am Kayla Elliott. I am the Director of Higher Education Policy at the Education Trust in Washington, D.C. That means I do a lot of reading and writing and talking and working with awesome folks about higher education, what it takes for students of color and students from low income backgrounds to be successful and to have access to college and to complete and to be able to thrive. And so we've been doing quite a bit of work with justice impacted students around lifting the ban on Pell for currently incarcerated folks. And now that that has happened, absolutely looking forward to advising the Department of Education on what it means to do that well and what it means to do that in an equity centered way. And so super excited to be able to work with our first cohort of fellows and now our second cohort on ensuring that their voices are centered, their perspectives are included in our agenda, and that we are doing good work in good ways for sure. So I'm going to kick it over to my colleague, William Freeman, who will talk to you a bit more about the Fellows Program and the application process.
Thank you, Caleb. So my name is William Freeman. I am now the manager of Higher Education Justice Initiative with the Education Trust, but before I was in this position, I was a Justice Fellow. And I'm here in a picture with my other 7 colleagues. So 8 of us were chosen for this role. And I'll jump right in for time's sake, because we want to leave a lot of time for the Q&A. So it's the introduction. Education Trust has been active, as Kayla just mentioned, participating in the federal advocacy effort to lift the ban on Pell Grants for students who are incarcerated. Central to our work is elevating the voices of directly impacted individuals as leaders and experts. In that effort, we launched the Justice Fellows Policy Program in 2020. The Justice Fellows use their experience and hard-earned expertise to review, amplify, inform, and reflect on EdTrust policy recommendations for justice impacted students. Now, I want to get into this a little bit with you all. Again, we'll save some time for Q&A, so if something's not clear, you'll have that opportunity. The selection criteria. You must be formally incarcerated, and what that means is those who were previously confined in jail, prison, or detention centers, or those with only a juvenile record who were committed to detention. Higher education is preferred but not required for the program. You must have less than 5 years professional, entrepreneurial, or community engagement experience. Now, along the selection process, we are assisted, along with the alumni who are with us here today, with the advisory board. The advisory board is made up of 12 professionals, most of whom are formally incarcerated, with expertise in advocating for issues at the nexus of higher education policy and the criminal legal system. They provide a high-level guidance and advice on EdTrust strategy for the Fellows Program. This selection process is made up of 4 phases. So as you would, phase 1 we're currently in right now was the application launching. We launched June 15th. The application, you're now attending the webinar, and then the application closes July 31st at 11:59 p.m. Phase 2 is about around mid-August. Some things we're still working with dates. So we haven't given exact dates here, but individuals will be informed of where they are in the process once application closes. So phase 2 is videos, and that's around mid-August. The applicant support here is guidance from examples for videos from the fellows. So the fellows will be able to show you how you could record, but you won't be held to that. There'll be video instructions that will go out to make that clear to folks how to do that. Phase 3 is Zoom interviews, and that's around late September. So once we get to phase 3, we'll be entering into like a semifinalist round. A detailed email will go out to prepare folks for the Zoom interview who were selected. And then finally, we'll move to a phase 4, which will occur around October. And then we'll have a virtual orientation or acceptance or welcoming in November, and then we'll move to an in-person thereafter. So now, if I could, I'd like to introduce you to the Justice Alumni. So we have Rabia Qutab, Alexa Garza, Patrick Rodriguez, and Jarrod Wall. So here, I'll stop sharing and introduce my fellow Fellows, and you can hear from them. So the first person I want to introduce is Rabia Qutab. Her pronouns are she, her. Rabia is a formerly incarcerated woman of color who is honored to serve her community advocating at the intersection of STEM and social justice. She demands equity, diversity, and inclusion for more formerly incarcerated women of color in the medical field. Then after Rabia, we will have Patrick. Patrick Rodriguez, his pronouns are he, him. In 2019, Patrick re-entered society and began working with the Georgia Coalition for Higher Education in Prison and the Common Good Atlanta, where his work supports formerly incarcerated students who are seeking to navigate the university spaces. Alexa Garza. Alexa is a passionate advocate who uses her lived experience of incarceration and higher education in prison programs to elevate the often neglected voices of incarcerated women of color and to illuminate the lack of support women encounter pursuing higher education in prison. And lastly, but not least by any measure, we'll have Jarrod Wall. Jarrod earned several degrees, an AA, a BA, a BS, and an MA in prison, but was repeatedly denied the opportunity to enroll into a PhD program due to his criminal background after release. He is now a PhD student at Tulane University, advocating at the intersection of higher education for currently and formerly incarcerated people and the traumas of incarceration. So with that, we'll move right into a question for Rabia. Rabia, how would you describe your experience in the Justice Fellows Policy Program?
You know, William, I call y'all my family, but for some reason, y'all can't pronounce my last name.
Qutab.
It's okay, there you go. I'm just kidding. Hello, everyone. My name is Rabia Qutab, and Qutab, whatever works for y'all. It's such a pleasure to be here with my peers, with my manager, with my friends and family here. One thing I do want to say is that my words are going to come off as real as it could be, because we're here to be transparent about everything. We're here to show our experience with the Justice Fellowship. And so for me, I feel like this was a space where we emerged together, where we intersected with each other, understanding higher education and policy, right? For folks who are formerly incarcerated, and also for folks who are incarcerated as well. And I feel like it was a space where we connected with each other, where we connected with partners, where we connected with ETRA staff, where we connected with other leaders and advocates. And this is just not limited to ETRAs within itself, but other organizations and programs and leaders and professors and mentors who are pushing for the agenda in the policy work. We were gaining professional skills, we were gaining policy skills, to understand our development, our spaces, and just learn ways to navigate our own selves personally and professionally in pathways towards our own academics, workforce, and professional development, and especially understanding policy and advocacy and reentry work as well. And so for me, this fellowship came in my life at a very low point in my life. You know, I was only a few months out of prison, incarcerated in the state of Texas, and I had paroled to Los Angeles, and I pretty much started from ground zero. I had academics prior to incarceration, and so the idea for me was, how do I continue education and higher education post-incarceration with the record that I have coming from another state? And so I think it allowed me to find an avenue to build myself professionally and academically in a space where there's like amazing leadership around you. And this is how I met my mentors, my supporters, my peers, my friends. And now we have become, in our cohort, even out of space, out of work, we have become part of each other's lives, and we are integrated in other workspaces, and we're connected with each other in ways that it's more than just this fellowship for myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabia. Next up, we will hear from Alexa. So Alexa, How has the Justice Follows policy program experience enriched your understanding of advocacy and policy?
Thanks, William, and thanks, Rabia. That was just phenomenal. The fellowship for me was one of knowledge. I have to say, my lived experience makes me an expert in the higher education and the Texas criminal justice system. I have a unique and valuable perspective to add to the conversation. However, I needed a seat at the table, and that is what EdTrust did. They opened the door and I walked through it. You see, when I was incarcerated, it was a nightmare to attend class. I didn't think anyone cared or that change was even possible. It had been that way for so long that I thought nothing could change it. But I was wrong. I heard about the fellowship from a friend. She suggested that I apply. I really didn't think I had a shot at it. I had no policy or advocacy experience. And after giving in to peer pressure, I applied. And to my surprise, I was selected. I cried when I received the news. I knew that this was going to change my life. This fellowship helped me understand that state agencies don't know about or entirely understand an issue or have other reasons, self-interest among them, for making or maintaining policy that is outdated, ill-conceived, unfair, or just plain wrong. That is where our voices come in. Who else but us to tell the realities of the actual practices, not the policies in place? I had to learn how the system works before I could try to change it, and I am still learning that. This fellowship also allowed me to have access to mentors and leaders in criminal justice and higher education reform. With these networking connections, I was able to be visible and get noticed, which is essential in career building. Again, being an EdTrust Justice Fellow brought me into spaces I otherwise never could have entered. What I will say about the actual curriculum is that you get what you put in. I made sure that I completed all the required readings and homework assignments. I made myself available for all boot camps, professional panel presentations. I asked for one-on-one Zoom meetings with EdTrust staff to help me better understand the inner workings of the organization. Yes, it was more than 10 hours a month, I will admit, but it was a choice I made to not let this opportunity go to waste. My understanding of both the system and the organizations within the education sector increased. I am learning where I fit best and where I am equipped to make a difference. What I learned from experts, my peers, and from EdTrust staff is preparing me for my next professional step, whatever they may be. And I am truly proud to say I am an EdTrust Justice Fellow.
Thank you for that, Alexa. Then the next fellow I'd like to introduce is Jarrod Wall. So Jarrod, can you talk to us a little bit about how you developed relationships with EdTrust and how that impacted your work?
Yeah, sure. So as kind of as introduced, I just finished year 3 of a 5-year PhD program. So when I entered the Justice Policy Fellowship, I entered as a student, not really looking or really even ready for a career yet. However, I was wanting to look at the next steps, like, wow, what will opportunities be after I graduate? So one of my goals when I stepped into the fellowship was I wanted to learn the field. In higher education and prison, you have the researchers, you have, policy, you have people doing the legal end, you have, the administrators. I mean, there's so many pieces. It's like, where do I fit in or where do I want to fit in? And so that was one of my goals, to get the lay of the land. So throughout the fellowship, I did gain an understanding, I believe, of the lay of the land. And it was the EdTrust staff that helped me to do this. So a lot of this came through the connections being made. From the very beginning, I asked Satra to kind of help me on this. And so she started explaining things. She said, hey, over here you have researchers, over here policy people. In the middle, you have a hybrid where they're both. I'm like, that was huge. It's like, okay, I'm starting to understand this. And then Kayla, we talked, and she talked to me basically kind of about her experience in PhD and how when we're in these programs, they're so stressful. We need to focus on our self-care, our health. And then she introduced me to people, and some of the people that she introduced me to then was really amazing. Then from states all over, one young woman from California that's part of EdTrust, Janan, she talked to me. She's a quantitative researcher, with statistics. Taught me some stuff though that I still have in my mind. I taught to the students I had. So just the different pieces I'm picking up from the different people I'm meeting. And then kind of as already mentioned is the mentoring process. You will be signed a mentor to. And what's really neat about that, I was really fortunate to get Dr. Erin Corbett, and we're similar a lot of times. We question a lot, or we look into a lot of different things. She's amazing. I feel so grateful. It was a good matchup. She took it very seriously. We met every 2 weeks, and we still meet. And basically, it's opened me up to other opportunities. Like I'm writing a book chapter in a book that she's editing. She's actually going to be the 4th person on my PhD committee. Then, Will Del Pilar. I mean, here's the vice president of higher education policy and practice at Ed Trust. And he's really invested in a lot of us. He's met one-on-one with a lot of us regularly. And he and I, just kind of met, and we'll meet up and we discuss research. And it's kind of fun. We can just kind of have that chance. We get to geek out, or just, we're bouncing back ideas back and forth. And then we get to where we're kind of collaborating, brainstorming on next steps. And I feel like I could have a whole career of just Will and I coming up with ideas together and trying to see if we can get them started. But that's just been amazing, though. And one day I told Will, I read this amazing, one of the most elegant articles I've read on evaluation in higher education in prison. And I'm like, I want to meet this person. And I told him in the email, I was like, I love their article so much, I'm gonna meet her. And all of a sudden he hits me up. He says, hey, we're gonna have a meeting scheduled with her. And the 3 of us met. We were able to discuss the article with her. So other times I've been in situations where we've pitched the funders. So hey, I could go on and on and on. The thing I guess I really want to say is when I stepped in, wanting to get to know the landscape, I think what had ended up happening is I ended up meeting people. Okay, I met people in Ed Trust. I met people outside of Ed Trust, and I learned the type of work that they're doing. And by learning the type of work they're doing, I know people I'd like to collaborate. I learn with people I probably wouldn't want to collaborate with, and I feel like that's just been a huge direction and help for my future. Just leave it at that.
Thank you, Jarrod. Thank you. I'm going to move to Patrick. Patrick, how were you able to balance your Justice Fellow obligations with all the other work, the amazing work you're doing in Atlanta?
Yeah, thank you so much for that, William. And just to kind of bring everybody up to context as it relates to all of the work that I do, my name is Patrick Rodriguez. I'm the co-executive director of the Georgia Coalition for Higher Education in Prison. I also direct the Common Good Atlanta. I was a Justice Policy Fellow. I was a student at Kennesaw State University. I was a part of the Georgia Association for Latino Elected Officials, their leadership cohort, the year that this was taking place at the exact same time. I also direct Beyond the Box, which is the campaign to remove the criminal conviction question on college applications. We successfully negotiated with the Board of Regents, and we actually removed the first offender question from there, and we're looking to introduce legislation next year. And so this is why this question was given to me, and I really, really appreciate it. But I think just to kind of build on what Alexis said, it's what you put into it. So I made sure to carve out time for this. And what that means is that every 2 weeks we would meet, or twice a month. I wouldn't say every 2 weeks, but twice a month we would meet. And those were my days to be in front of the computer, camera on, just sitting there like, okay, I'm ready to learn whatever it is, because I was just super brand new, just like Rabia as well. I was 12 months out whenever I applied. So sub 24 months doing this awesome experience. And I think for me, I would say I'm kind of like an organizational junkie, meaning I like to organize things. I like schedules. I live by my calendar. You can ask William. I think we were in conversation about a tentative trip, and I sent him a hold last month, and this isn't for 8 months from now. And so I do that because otherwise I'm not able to function professionally. And so what this has done, this has challenged me to add another layer of things to do, but not a layer of things to do, but how do I increase my ability to complete things in a full kind of way, right? And so I was able to get a lot out of the fellowship. It was a whole bunch of fun, but more so than that, I think if I'm going to take it back to full circle, whenever I was in prison, I realized one of the reasons why I got locked up is because I never finished what I started. And so it was getting this opportunity. I had to promise myself hey, I'm going to finish this no matter what. There were a lot of adversities that we all went through. There were a lot of troubles. It was a really difficult year, I think, for everybody in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. We had all this stuff going on with the government and COVID and all of these different things, but we just stayed focused. And because I stayed focused and I had a strong community of support around me, which you can literally see on this screen, everybody here I've called and everybody's called me. It really kind of made it so that I was able to balance everything because I felt included, and it was a space that I wanted to be a part of. And so I hope that that answers that question there, William.
Yeah, I mean, you never fail to deliver. We definitely know who you are. But thank you for sharing a really shrunk or snippet of your experience with the fellowship. So I did see a question in the box, and Alexa, you kind of hit on it. Well, you did answer it. You didn't kind of hit on it. You answered it. And Kayla, I see you sent it as well. So it was a question asked about travel, being in Massachusetts. And so EdTrust will cover travel, including transportation and lodging in advance. We will also provide meals and reimburse you for your meals while you're traveling. So hopefully that answers that question. And I don't know what others we had. But if anyone has a question, you can put it in the chat. But I will ask this last question, and anyone could take it, since I don't see an abundance of questions there. Because we came up with a list of questions, right? Is there anything you'd like to talk about that was not contained within the question that you answered? Is there anything you'd like to mention? Something you might feel needs to be said?
If I may, William, the question when I was applying for it or heard about it was the $30,000. Like, what does that consist of? How is that? Like, what do you mean? Am I qualified? Do I not qualify? I mean, so there's always like that big question of, the commitment to it and so forth. And that question of the money comes up a lot. And I just wanted to just put it out there in total transparency. So maybe you could just talk about that.
Oh, you're asking to talk about it, or you just
yeah.
Oh, so of course. So as folks know, I'm sure that anyone who is in attendance knows about the $30,000 stipend, right? But again, it's 1099. So this cohort, we will have outside folks come in and consult with folks to tell us more about taxes and these things, right? Very important, folks, to understand this money will be paid to you in 3 payments. So you'll get a payment every 4 months. Very, very important to set aside 1/3 of that money for taxes. EdTrust will not take the taxes out. Essentially, you are a contractor or a consultant with EdTrust, and as such, you'd be responsible for paying your own taxes. So it's a $30,000 stipend, barring taxes. You need to pay taxes. That's important for us because that's true. I had an experience similar to the one that Alexa had. I got $30,000, and when I was getting 10,000 lump sums, I felt like I had 10,000. The reality of it is, if you do it right, each portion of that 10,000 is due, or one of the 10,000 should sit, just in case. Not sure if you wanted to add anything to that, Kayla?
Not too much to that. Yeah, $30,000 stipend, 3 payments, pretty straightforward. Set aside your taxes for sure. But there was a question in the chat around like other expenses. So you'll receive for sure your stipend. And then EdTrust will cover all travel, including your transportation and hotel in advance. If we're traveling to a conference or something and there's a registration fee, we'll cover that in advance also. Anything that you would have to come out of pocket for while you are traveling is likely your like Uber to the airport, to and from the airport. And then if you grab a meal while you're traveling, save your receipts for all of those things, and we'll reimburse those for sure.
And then one of the things I wanted to point out is that we all kind of collaborated the travels in a way that if Alexa and I were coming around the similar time from the airport, we just Uber together. And so there's ways that you will actually meet your peer fellows and build that connection. And then during like the meetups and the conferences, you'll be able to, discuss your travels together. And so that way you can all each other, like support each other.
Yeah, and it's also if you are in a place where you wouldn't be able to handle some of those expenses, we can find a way to I know I've offered to schedule shuttles for folks, especially because the Denver airport is far from everything, right? And I'm like, y'all, these are about to be like $70 Ubers because it's just that far away from everything. So if we wanted to schedule you a shuttle service, you know, from the hotel, we could do that in advance and cover it so that you didn't have to be reimbursed. Like, there are certainly ways for us to be flexible with those few expenses that fellows are expected to be reimbursed for. So we'll always be in constant communication about what folks need for sure. A question about whether or not resumes and CVs, either or. If you have a CV, we would love that. If you have a resume, we would love that. If you don't have either, simply a bulleted list of your experiences and skills and interests is also great too. If you want to, I think there's a place to upload a document. So if you want to type that up in document and send and upload that, that's sufficient also. We're not looking at format. We are looking at what it is that you know and what you hope to learn for sure. So whatever format you have is great. There was another question. There's a few questions in the Q&A, one around folks who may be on parole and they need documentation and other things from the organization. Absolutely. We will know pretty far in advance when folks will be expected to travel. So we'll both be able to provide that information for you and to sign off on any like documents or provide documents, whatever is necessary for sure. We'll do that. And there was another question around academic requirements. And so the question was around like grade requirements. We are not looking at GPAs. We are not looking at transcripts. And it is not a requirement that you had to have been enrolled in higher education in prison. It is a prefer, like we would prefer folks who have some experience in higher education, whether that is, you know, in a higher education and prison program or what it's like to navigate getting into college afterwards or before. So that is not a requirement, but we would love for folks to be able to speak to that experience. So no grade requirements, no academic requirements.
There are two new ones. One in particular, it says this from, there's one in there, it says it, as it pertains to previous experience, I have past experience in a field in which due to my felony, I cannot partake in. Therefore, the field I'm involved in now, advocacy and policy, is completely new to me. Does my past experience disqualify? So I would answer to that, yes. If you have more than 5 years professional, entrepreneur, or community engagement experience, then, I mean, just imagine, and the reason why this is built into that is because imagine being in a cohort of people who have not had 5 years professional, entrepreneur, or community engagement experience, and you've had a whole career prior to incarceration, and then after getting involved in this space, it would be a completely unfair process to evaluate that person's credentials and experience up against someone who may be someone who needs to write a bulleted list of things I've done in prison that can be considered transferable. If that makes sense. If not, if I'm leaving something, Kayla, I'll defer.
Yeah, I would, without like knowing how many years, because I don't think, I'm looking at the question now, it doesn't say how many years experience you had. Like, if you feel like you can explain, and if you feel like we are really looking for what William just said, which is like early career folks, right? Like you are still early in the game, whatever the game is, right? If you feel like you genuinely are early career because that experience was so long ago, because that experience was only 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, if you feel that, I would still encourage you to apply, and we as the reviewers will look at that. But it is definitely experience for folks who will be new to the workforce, folks who will be new to advocacy and policy, folks who don't have transferable skills. And so while you may have that previous experience in a field which you can't practice in anymore, certainly you have like some skills and experiences from that time, which could translate to another field, right? And I think that's kind of what William is getting at, is like you navigated the workforce before. You have like certain things that, you know, if it was one thing, you could go pretty close. I used to be a fundraiser, and I always said, like, listen, if you can get people to like give you money, like you can get people to apply for a job. So I always felt like fundraisers could be recruiters and recruiters could be fundraisers, right? And so we're just trying to think through broadly, how do we make sure that this opportunity is offered to people who are really early? Because the one thing that we do know is the curriculum itself is pretty entry level, right? Like, what is policy? What is advocacy? What is activism? When do they overlap? How does research become a part of that as well? And so what we don't want is folks who understand this, right? Like, we're doing resume building workshops. We're doing just some very, very primary skill building. And if you already have that because you spent time in the workforce, then it wouldn't be as great of an opportunity for you, right? Like, you wouldn't receive as much growth and development. And we want to make sure that everybody feels like this is a good use of their time, for sure. I think similarly, we have another person who is already has already been a part of a leadership fellowship, and also may hold a full-time position as a policy analyst for an advocacy organization. I would say that your experience is beyond the scope of this program. That I'm pretty confident in, right? Like, if you already understand policy and are professionally weighing in on a organization's policy agenda, this is for folks who would want to be in your position, right? Like, this is for folks who want to get into a policy analyst position or want to do something comparable like Patrick is doing with his own organization, right? Like, folks who are still learning enough to get to where you are. And so I don't know. And again, if you want to apply and explain to us how you could benefit from the program, we certainly encourage you to, but definitely we want this to be for folks who are like, I'm figuring out what policy and advocacy is and my role in it, not necessarily those who already have a foot in the door.
Yeah, thankful. That was helpful. So we have about a couple more minutes and we'll be at time. I still would defer to my colleagues. Is there anything that you wanted to be able to add on to, something that you just heard something and you wanted to add feedback?
I just want to emphasize, I came in with questions and really think, what it is that you want to know. And realize that the amount of work that they do ask in this fellowship, you're going to get so much more out of it than basically what's being asked of you. I mean, I almost felt guilty different times. Did feel guilty different times. I mean, but I feel like I gained so much from it. But again, put in the work as well, like Alexis said. We got another chat question here. But yeah, just thinking over kind of what it is that you want to learn. That way you can enter the space with those questions.
Right. And I see Christy asked a question, and Kayla and I actually talked this one through as well. Definitely encourage you to apply. We don't mean to say that if you worked in a restaurant or fast food or whatever the case might be, that would qualify as your professional experience. Again, encourage all to apply. If there's an explanation to be given, I would say write that out. Like, there's a place on the application where you write essays, 200-300 words a piece, finding a way to weave that in. Like, why do I have such a, what appears to be such a lengthy professional experience, but it really isn't. We were able to learn from one another as fellows. I'll share, like, again, there are fellows that are amongst us who, like, again, Jarrod is here and Jarrod is in a PhD program. But many times still when we talk, we're realizing, like, early on in our careers, we are under 5 years in that process, there's still so much that we're learning as far as what professional skills would be classified as, right? So yes, Jarrod did a lot of schooling in program. In prison, I did some schooling. Rabia had schooling before incarceration. Alexa, one of her speaking points is lack of access due to programs not even being available that would take her past a threshold for women in Texas. And then Patrick similarly has experiences around lack of lack of access in Atlanta. So it's really all due to how you weave it in. Again, to Kayla's point, if you're able to argue and get money, if you can do that, then you should definitely be able to weave into those essay questions why this experience shouldn't be considered against me, and then what I can get out of this program. I hope that answers your question, Christy, but definitely encourage you to apply. If your work was in the service industry, apply for the fellowship. And the fact that we have nearly 180 applications submitted and 7 folks joined, I mean, I would say that's showing a desire. One of the measuring pieces that we will use looking at these applications is a person's desire to do policy around the intersection of higher ed and incarceration, to change that status for folks who are currently and formally still faced with the obstacles of being formally incarcerated in education spaces. Patrick, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's really great that we have a lot of people with a lot of professional experience here that are negotiating whether or not they're going to apply. But for those that have no experience and feel like it's too much for you to apply, apply. And I just want to uplift you guys, because when I first got out, I was 12 months out. I was working as like a supervisor for like a painting company, climbing ladders, and like it was really hot and sweaty. It's Georgia. And I was like, man, maybe the policy world isn't for me. I don't have any policy experience. I don't even know what policy is. And then I still went ahead because I had somebody push me to apply for it. So if you feel like you don't even really know what policy is and you want to apply and you have like zero experience and you just got out of prison, or your experience is just, I don't know, like a job or something, whatever kind of job you have, apply. And just, again, talk about that desire that William talked about. And I think a lot of us have a similar thing. And again, just to really highlight what William is saying, not discouraging anybody to apply, but if you have a lot of experience, that I'm sure that you can make a very beautiful justification inside of the application. And so we look forward to reading them.
So we are almost at time. I'll read this last one. It says, yes, I would love to be able to help where I can. I'm an alum for the NJ STEP program and Vera Institute Scholar when I came home and was able to continue my education at Rutgers University. Please keep in touch. We will certainly do that. Thank you for that kind gesture. We're almost at time. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Or email us.
Right. So with that, thank you for joining the Justice Fellows Policy Program webinar. Really glad to be here, and I'm sure I speak for my fellow alums. Really glad to be here and be a part of this process. Hope that we were able to answer your questions, and if you have additional questions, follow up by email. You can find me at williamfreeman@edtrust.org, and we will get right back to you, or Kayla Elliott at edtrust.org. I would get everybody else's, but that's not the point. But anyway, I'll give you back to whatever you're doing before the webinar. Thank you, and wish everybody luck with the process.
Good luck. Good luck. Tell a friend. Bye.
Good luck.